Hey Fabricators, welcome back to another Advancing Fabric brought to you by Advancing Analytics, your data and AI experts. Now, today I want to talk about networking, but don't press stop yet. I want to talk about some great new features that have been just announced for Fabric just last week, and that's private link and private endpoints for Microsoft Fabric. So if you don't know what that means, let's dive right into it. So the news announcement came out on the 28th of February. There was a flurry of announcements around about it, but essentially this opens up a world of possibilities for customers or organizations that have existing infrastructure or have existing storage accounts and SQL databases and things that are all hidden away behind private endpoints in virtual networks. And they're already set up and contained within their organizations' environments. So normally, or in the past with Microsoft Fabric, you've not had the capability to connect to these securely. That has been something that we've been waiting on for a while and has been potentially holding back some organizations from taking Fabric to that next level beyond POC. So this is really interesting to see here. And there's a great article on how this works, how you can set it up, what the details are of it. Bear in mind that is still in public preview at the moment, but let's dive right into it and I can show you how it works. So I've got a notebook open here already, and what I'm doing in this notebook is just connecting to our ADLS Gen 2 storage accounts. Now I've got one storage account here that I'm connecting to that's essentially open. If we look at it in Azure, I can see that I have the firewalls, there's no virtual network there, and it's open from all networks. Now I am connecting to it through a SaaS token, but we could be connecting to this anonymously. We could be using an account key or service principal or something. But essentially, if I run this, that connectivity is gonna work fine. It's gonna allow us to see that open storage account. And that succeeded. It's brought back that Delta table. I can read from that storage account. But a lot of organizations aren't comfortable with storage accounts having that level of openness and access. So organizations maybe lock these down. So if we switch over to this other storage account we have, my SA Secure Lakehouse, we would potentially have this locked down to be enabled to select virtual networks or IP addresses, or maybe even public network access is disabled entirely. Now, this is always something that worries me a little bit when you mention the word public, when in reality, this is not necessarily opening it up entirely to the public. You've got other elements in there. We've secured it with SaaS token. We've secured it with access control lists as well. But essentially, that means the data is going over the public internet. It's not staying on that Microsoft backbone. And when you wrap all of these in a virtual network, all of your kind of storage accounts, if you're using other tools, if you're using Synapse, if you're using Databricks, if you've got a SQL database in there as well, you would have them all connected within private endpoints inside a virtual network. So disabling this, I just want to get that demonstration of what that connectivity looks like. So disabling that means that when I'm in Microsoft Fabric and I try to connect to this, it's not going to work. It's basically going to throw back an error saying you're not authorized, I can't connect to this storage account. And that's the problem that many organizations have been facing up until now. Now, there is a solution, thankfully. If I come to this same workspace and I'll close this just now, and I'll go into workspaces and go into this demo one that we're looking at and go to my workspace settings. There's a network security tab here now. So within this network security tab, I can create a managed private endpoint. I can create a new one, give it a name, give it the resource identifier for my storage account, which you can find in there. And I can also select the sub resource. So that's going to be our Data Lake Gen 2, and then just stick in a message because that has to go away for approval. So once I hit create, that will create that managed private endpoint. And if I go over to my secure account, I can see these private endpoint connections, and I can see this one that I've already set up that's already approved. So this would be in a pending state, and I would come in here and I can simply hit approve or reject to authorize that. So that's got a private endpoint that's set up against that secure storage account. And if I come back to Fabric, that's the same secure storage account that I'm connecting to here. If I run that cell, I can return that same data that we were seeing in the other storage account. So we've got that connectivity now, which is great. That's going to give us the possibility of connecting to existing architectures and starting to bring them into, bring that data into Fabric. And that opens up possibilities, as I've discussed in previous videos, where we talk about that hybrid architecture approach, where you might already have a data lakehouse established, but you want to actually make use of things like Direct Lake inside Fabric. So you can connect all your existing infrastructure and components and your data up to Fabric and work with it this way. So I can read data in here, I can bring that into OneLake, I can surface that through Power BI, or I can write down data using Fabric as well. So that opens up a load of possibilities essentially. Now that's kind of that direct connectivity piece. Beyond that, we've got Private Link, which was an exciting news article that was also mentioned. And that gives us the capabilities to go a little bit deeper and essentially wrap what we've already had for Power BI, but wrap the entirety of our Fabric tenant inside our own network, so that we've got that private link connectivity with a whole VNet that we've got our resources in. So if I go up to our admin portal settings, I can jump in here and I can find this by just typing in network, and it's got the capability for me to enable the private link and also block public internet access as well. So we can really start to lock things down, which is an exciting development, and certainly moving in the right direction. A couple of caveats to be aware of and to remember with this is that you're limited to using an F64 capacity or using your trial capacity. So where I've been working with this inside my workspace here, this has to be attached to either an F64 Fabric capacity or above, or it currently works with the trial capacities. There's no word on whether that will be expanded to lower capacity levels, but that is a requirement at the moment. If we think about some of these elements around managed private endpoints, or private endpoints in networking, things like that, when you implement an Azure architecture, then all of these things have a cost attached to them as well. So I imagine that's where it's kind of taking you in to that F64 level. Another thing, which is an unfortunate development as well, that you need to be aware of, is that when you've created a managed private endpoint inside a workspace, you're no longer able to take advantage of the starter pools. So the first command that I ran in this was essentially setting up my connection strings, took 2.5 minutes rather than the usual 5 seconds. We can see this detail as well if we go into our workspace settings and jump into data engineering and science and look at our Spark settings. It's going to give us that warning that starter pools aren't available for workspaces using private endpoints. So that's something to be aware of. I don't know if that's something that we'll see changing in the future, but it's certainly going to take away a little bit of that shine when you're using your notebooks within Microsoft Fabric. So I'll drop the details to that news article and the private link for Fabric news article as well in the comments. And certainly give us your input on it, and let me know what you think of this new feature and how long you've been waiting for this feature. It has been one of the most highly requested features from Fabric on the forums as well. So it's really great to see that landing now. And as always, if you're new around here, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for another Advancing Fabric.